I was dreaming about it last night. Girl, it is not that serious. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Just another struggling writer. The Beleaguered Authors one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. And today is the start of another writing vlog, but not just any writing vlog. The first writing vlog of the second draft. If you're new here, again, my name is Carrie, and I am currently writing what I hope will be my debut fantasy novel, Seekers of Empyrean. Seekers of Empyrean is a Monster of the Week inspired urban fantasy following a young woman with a rare magical ability who is recruited by a secret government agency to hunt down and stop a growing threat to the magical community. And despite finishing the first draft of this project barely 3 weeks ago, today marks the beginning of a challenge I have set for myself to draft the second draft of this novel in just 12 weeks. If you want to hear more about that challenge, please see my last video in which I talk about the schedule I am setting out for myself and the rewards and punishments I have laid out for myself as well. So as I said, today is Monday, and it is actually a little bit on the late side. It is almost 10:30 and I have not quite gotten started yet, but not for the lack of trying. In fact, actually just a little bit earlier, I was having a little bit of a panic attack because I realized my plan for the second draft, I don't know how committed I feel to it. Originally, I was going to completely redraft the entire book and only take the best lines from the first draft. And I think this is really just a problem with the beginning and just this first scene, because I already have a difficult time with the very first couple of paragraphs and first scene. But I'm struggling a little bit because I do like the first line with some minor adjustments. And I always thought, okay, I'll just import that over and just write the scene fresh. But as I was looking at it earlier, I started feeling attached to the old version. And I don't think it's because it's especially good. I think it's just because I don't feel especially good at writing the first scene, or especially those first few paragraphs. And so I was like, well, I'll just take the first 3 paragraphs then. That doesn't really feel in spirit of what I want to do. I do want to completely redraft this and really truly only take the best material from draft 1. But on the other hand, if I've already started in a way that I feel confident in, why not just take the beginning and then just revise it later, right? There's also the fact that I have spent all damn day thinking about this project. I'm going to insert a clip here from earlier this afternoon on my lunch break where I talk about a little bit about what was going on with the outline earlier. Hello, hi. It is currently Monday afternoon, and I have a quick update before I get into the madness that is my 12-week challenge. I have been thinking really kind of all day as I've been working about this fight scene that is where I stalled out of my outline on Saturday. I had kind of quietly known that part of the reason I stumbled there and decided to call it quits on Saturday was because something about this new iteration of the scene didn't feel right, and it felt kind of like there was something missing or that there was a plot hole. And over the course of yesterday and today, I've kind of isolated what that plot hole was and identified that it needs to be fixed. The fight scene in its current iteration does not work anymore, and I need to really rethink my antagonist's movements prior to this big confrontation and like her thought processes and stuff. I spent like my entire lunch break doing that, and I think I've come up with a solution that makes a lot more sense. It completely, it doesn't change the fight scene, like there's still a big confrontation, the lead up and everything, it changes so much, but I think it's better. I do have to tweak a couple of previous scenes, not hugely, mostly just location related, but like the previous scene before I stopped the outline does need to be reworked, and then this current one. So it's gonna make this like pinch point, it's gonna kind of blow it up a little bit and expand it and make it a little bit longer, which is fine because the fight scene ended up being like 6,000 words in the previous draft. I think more than that. It was really long. Not just the fight scene, but like the lead up. And then anyway, I feel good about it. I don't know how much I can get away with outlining today, because like I said, I've spent almost my entire lunch break thinking about it, and then I was like, oh, I better go eat, hence in my car. But yeah, I'm I'm changing yet another aspect of the draft in a way that I think, again, improves it, eliminates some sort of weird narrative connections that could also be coincidences, that could also be connections. It makes it a little bit more streamlined. It makes it a little bit more believable, and also links back to further books. It never stops. It never stops. Never stop improving. That, I guess that is the theme so far of revision, has been there's always room for improvement. If the first draft is just get it out, it doesn't matter if it's bad, then revision is, because it was so bad, now there isn't always room for improvement. Anyway, so I'm gonna go inside. I'm gonna take some Excedrin because I feel a headache coming on. And then my plan for tonight is to check in with you guys and, in theory, get started on the draft. So as you can see, I have been working through some drama with this project all day. And when I sat down and opened my computer to start thinking about the writing session coming up, my brain did feel a little bit tapped out for ideas. So I'm sure that is contributing to my sense of unease and almost near panic regarding these first couple of paragraphs. And now that it's so late, I'm like worried that I'm not going to get my 1,000 words for the day. But in the spirit of just getting through it and moving on, I think I'm just going to take what I like, revise it a little bit, and go from there. I'm not going to overburden myself by ensuring that I'm redrafting 90% new words, at least here in this very first part. That I think would hold me up so much as to be prohibitive. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. It is what it is. I'll revise it down a little bit to make it a little bit cleaner, but the actual like rewriting of that opening couple of lines, I'm going to save that for later. So that's that. But before I start writing officially, I'd like to show you my random punishment that I drew for this week. As a reminder, I have 12 punishments that I have laid out for myself, put them in a little cup, and I will draw a random one out each week. And if I do not meet my 10,000 word writing goal each week, I will have to follow the parameters of the punishment the following week while also trying to get back on track. So I'm hoping that these are a sufficient motivator to keep me going and keep me after those 10,000 words every week. So I was so excited about this. I actually drew it last night, and here is that video now. Hey y'all, it is now Sunday, June 22nd, which means it is the first Sunday evening of the 12-week writing challenge I have set for myself, and that means it is time to pick my first punishment. What punishment will motivate me this week to write 10,000 words? I've got my little cup, I've got my little scraps of black paper, and I am going to shake these up and figure out how I'm going to stay motivated this week. I've got my punishment. So this week my motivation is write only at my writing desk for 1 week. That means I would also have to clean off my desk. That is my punishment. If I do not write 10,000 words between Monday and Sunday night, following week, I will only be able to write at my writing desk. All things considered, not too harsh a punishment to start off on, which I think is a really good thing. I can't imagine if I had selected one of the harder ones, like going to the gym every day for a week. Still, I do prefer to write in my recliner or on my couch, so I am going to keep that in mind for motivation as I work towards this 10,000 word goal for the week. It is getting late, and if I want to go to bed at a reasonable hour, I need to get a writing session in quickly. So I will talk to you guys later and let you know where I ended up for the evening. All right, I've got my ambient music. I've got my ambient candle. I've got my fuel. I've got a Pomodoro. And I've got my heated blanket. I think I'm ready to start. Okay, so we have to do this fast because my battery is almost dead and it's after midnight, so my partner already went to bed and I don't want to go in there and get my camera. So it is, as I said, just after midnight, and I am wrapping up this session. I am topping out at 1,135 words, so I did go over my goal for the day. Yay. But most interestingly is almost half of those words were taken from the first draft. That is not what I expected at all. I expected to be almost completely redrafting this, maybe only taking 10% from the original. That is not proving to be the case. I am taking quite a bit and tweaking it for sure, adapting it more to the voice that I developed over the course of draft one. Obviously, in the first scene, it's hard to be really settled in your voice, and I can tell. So I'm making it a little bit voicier, making it a little bit punchier, and kind of describing certain things a little bit more. Of the 1,100 words, I'm keeping a log actually. Yeah, almost 600 of those were borrowed from the first draft. And I don't really think that that'll be the case throughout the whole draft, especially as I get into the scenes that are being cut and rewritten and deleted and being replaced. So this isn't going to be the case the whole time, but I just felt like as I was reading through this that this isn't really a bad first scene. It's pretty effective in that, I think, in that it immediately shows conflict and tension with what Arceli is going through. She's been arrested and she's being booked into jail, while also hinting at something more. Of course, we know that that is her magic, but that is kind of what I'm using to like hook for the end of the chapter into chapter 2 is, by the way, it's magic. So hinting at that, also kind of giving some hints to her background and her attitude and her personality. So ultimately, I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. I've trimmed some stuff out and I've tweaked it and I've revised it, but I'm kind of surprised. I did not expect this to be the case at all. I honestly thought I was going to be redrafting. I'm pleased though. I'm really pleased. I think this is a method that I can be happy with and work with if this is the case. Again, we're going to have scenes that I'm going to have to draft some from scratch. And like, I know that there are a couple coming up that I really hated the first time around and was really disappointed in my effort. So there's that too. But for now, not a bad start, especially considering that I got started super late and I was very like mentally drained coming into this writing session. So I am going to go to bed pretty pleased with myself and ready to do it again tomorrow. So that's it for Monday. Day 1 of this 12-week drafting challenge, a success. Hey y'all, it is now Tuesday evening and I am just checking in with a quick writing update for you. As you saw earlier this evening, I did pop in on the live stream hosted by Cody the Writer. I wasn't really sure if I should. It was held earlier in the evening than I prefer on a weekday. I've got my kids, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to swing it with making dinner and everything else. But this morning I drew the Four of Wands card, and that is a card kind of about celebration and community. So I figured Cody's stream was appropriate for the day. I didn't get a ton of writing done during the stream. I was a little bit distracted, but I stuck with it. I stayed in my recliner and I got my words done. Something I am noticing about the second draft, and I think this is a good thing and something we should be doing for second drafts, is that I'm just being a little bit more selective about the words I'm choosing and the sentences I'm constructing. It's not like the first draft where one of the lessons I took away from it was just write whatever will move you forward and go on, because you just got to get it done. Now that I'm in the second draft, even though I am redrafting a not insignificant part of it, I'm being a little bit more specific about how I am choosing to phrase things. And so that is taking a little bit longer. I also borrowed way less from the first draft in tonight's writing session. So that also contributed to it taking longer than yesterday. But again, I got it done. In fact, I finished out the opening scene. I ended up on the day with 1,405 words. So I went well over the 1,000-word target I need to stay on track for the week. And I actually came in under the first draft version of the scene, but I'm not mad at that. Now that I'm all the way through a first draft, I've gotten a better taste for Arceli, my main character's like voice and her personality. And so I was able to go through this first scene and see where the original version doesn't really jive with what she ended up being by the end. And so I was able to kind of cut out some of the personality and some of like the behavior that I didn't really feel was her anymore and replace it with behavior and personality that made more sense. And I was also able to drop in like a few sentences of backstory to help kind of lay a foundation for scenes that'll form a full subplot throughout the book, something I didn't do in the original version. So even though I ended up with less words, I'm happy with it. I'm way happier with it. That being said, I'm not convinced it's complete at the moment. The line and the moment I left off on is definitely the end of the scene, but I'm not sure that I didn't leave some meat on the bones in an effort to just move on. And so I think tomorrow what I'm gonna do on my lunch break is read through it and maybe add some more context here and there or flesh some things out. We'll see. It may not need it, but as I was wrapping up the scene, I was wondering, did I leave some stuff out that should be included in this opening scene? Again, I don't know. I think that's what I'll do with my lunch break tomorrow. All told, day 2, a success. It took me again way longer than I would like. I was kind of hoping to get to go to bed early tonight since I was up so late last night. And again, like I could have finished off when I hit the 2,000 word mark aggregate, but I was so close to the end of the scene by then that I was like, I'll just go ahead and finish it. And I'm glad that I did. It's going well. It's going well. But I did have the thought earlier today that while I at first was pleased that I chose one of the easier punishments for this week, a punishment here meaning like if I don't succeed in getting the 10,000 words, I would have to do the punishment next week. I realized that that actually isn't to my benefit because of course I'm going to have the most energy in the first week. So I'm the most likely to hit the 10K in the first week. If you remember from my rules, like my 12-week challenge rules video, if I successfully get the 10K, I can throw away the punishment and not have to worry about it. But I almost wish that I had drawn one of the harder ones this week because I feel super, super confident that I will get the 10K. And I'd like to have the opportunity to get rid of one of the more punishing ones. They're all punishing. There's a scale here. Oh well, it is what it is. I am sticking to the plan. I also worked a little bit on the outline. As you may recall, I did not finish the outline before I started the draft, but I'm not like super concerned about it because it doesn't really deviate from the first draft version that much. And that kind of bore out today as I was working on the outline is like, this is basically identical in substance. There might be a couple of context changes, but in essence, it is the same. I do plan on adding a scene or two a day until I finish the outline. My only concern at the moment is that the midpoint no longer appears to be at the middle, at the very like midpoint. So I may have to reevaluate as I get closer to that in the draft. There's just so many unknowns at the moment with the Act 2 rewrites. So we'll just have to see how it all shakes out. But I still feel really, really confident in the Act 2 rewrites and then the shakeup of the big confrontation scene at the like 65% mark. I am going back to a version, almost the original version in the original draft 1 outline because I deviated strongly from it in the draft itself. I am just talking at this point to talk. So I am going to go freshen up and go to bed, and I will see you guys tomorrow with hopefully another success story. Hey y'all, it is now Thursday morning, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't write it all yesterday. I mean, that's not totally true. I did start to review the first scene, and I'm glad I did because I found a spot where I had just trailed off a sentence and then failed to finish it. Because what had happened was I was copying some of the text from the first draft document into the second draft document because I wanted to reuse it, but I wanted to change some things. And so
I copied the sentence. I was changing some things. I was like, oh, I don't know how to end this sentence. It was a description of the room she was in. Then I got distracted by the next line, which I also wanted to use, so I copied that in, and then I just forgot to go back and finish that sentence. So I'm glad that I went in and reviewed it. So I added about 25 words, and I didn't get to finish reviewing it. Yesterday was just so busy. It's the end of the month. What else is there to say? I'm busy. Also, I've just been in a fog the last 2 days, but especially yesterday, I just found it really difficult to concentrate. I was very tired, and I was having a hard time concentrating on anything. Like, I went home and I had to take my daughter to her appointment, and I always bring a book to her appointment because I'm just sitting there for an hour, and I didn't even open it, which is a shame because it's a really long one and I need to get it read. And then I got home from her appointment and I just sat in my recliner and watched baseball and ate dinner and just sort of vegged. And because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even focus on baseball. And I was like, I had the game on, or I'd be cross stitching, or I'd be looking at my book. I wouldn't say reading it, looking at it. But I was just having a difficult time staying focused. And so I decided I was just gonna take the evening off. And so I went to bed at 10:30. I didn't edit any videos. I didn't do any content. I didn't write. And I think that was for the best because I woke up this morning feeling way more refreshed, and I can tell I just have more energy and more focus today. Now, again, it is the end of the month. I am ahead a little bit, unlike last month where I fell behind. I am ahead of the game this month, so I'm not feeling quite as stressed as I was last month. And I don't have the vacation ahead of me either, so that helps. But all that to say, I'm hoping that my brain won't feel like mush at the end of the day, and that I can get some writing done today because now I've got some catching up to do. Not a ton, because fortunately on Tuesday I did so much. I did over 1,400 words. So I'm only a half a day behind rather than a full day behind. But again, I'm not super worried about it because this next scene is kind of like the inciting incident, and it's got a lot of information in it. The name of the scene, just by comparison, and this isn't going to, more than likely not going to appear anywhere in the book. This is just what I'm calling the scene in my head, is "You're a wizard, Arceli." So if you think about the source material and what that scene is, it kind of like the inciting incident, it's like, hey, by the way, and it's also a big info dump. So it's kind of similar in that regard, which is to say the words will probably be flowing pretty readily. So I'm not super concerned. And also, the whole point of this 12-week challenge is it's about a weekly goal, not a daily goal. So falling behind one day is not necessarily a killer for me. It's my last week of the term for macroeconomics, and I have a project due on Sunday, and I'm kind of unhappy about it. I'm not really worried about it. It will probably take me a couple hours out of the weekend, probably on both days, maybe 2 hours and 2 hours. I'd like to break it up that way so that I'm not doing it. All I have to say is that I've got other things to work on this weekend. So if I can get back ahead of the writing, that would be super helpful. But also, I've got my first live stream tomorrow, which I'm so absurdly nervous about it. I'm so nervous about it. I was dreaming about it last night. And girl, it is not that serious. I'm saying this to myself. It is not that serious. You do not need to be that worried about it. All you're going to do is sit at your desk and chit chat with people and write. And it's just it's that middle part that is the part that anyway, okay, I better go into work and get started on this day so that I can, stay ahead of that work too. And then we'll check in later tonight because I do anticipate getting a bunch of writing done. Good morning, everyone. It is now Friday morning, and last night was a bit of a struggle for me because I just made some bad decisions. So because I took Wednesday off of pretty much everything, I didn't really do anything, including video editing, I thought that I could catch up on Thursday. And I edited 2 videos back to back. And the last vlog, the most recent vlog, ended up being super long. Anyway, and so I was editing pretty much from the time I got home. That's not true. It was from about 6 to 7. And then I had to take my daughter to swimming lessons. And then from 8 to 11. So I was editing all evening. And I really should have just delayed the TBR video for my other channel because I've already made concessions that channel is not going to be as regular as I would want given my druthers, just because I'm trying to focus on writing. But I was like, no, I can do it. I can do edit 2 videos tonight. And I did, but at the cost of everything else. So I did eventually get into my recliner and get some writing done. It wasn't a ton. It was about 800 words, just over 800 words. I don't know how much I love what I did. A lot of it, not a lot of it, I would say about half of it is copy pasted from draft one. But I think I'm going to go over it today and make sure that that it's okay, because I was pretty tired. I was writing from about 11:15 till about 12:30. That's what happened. I did get some writing done. I'm now about 600 words behind where I would like to be, but I do have the live stream tonight, and I'm really hoping that that'll be super productive for me. Going into this weekend, I've got some work to do, which I already knew. I mean, by nature, the schedule is to write 2,500 words on Saturday and Sunday. So already I know that I've got work to do on the weekend. I've also got a project, like it's my last week of the term, so I've got a project due, and I guess that's it. Those are really the only two big obligations. I would like to finish a book, but I've barely started it and it's very long, so I don't know if that'll happen. So that's it. Not a terrible day. Like, I did get up and write, and I almost got the 1,000 words that I wanted, but it just got to a point where it's like I can't think of anything. Like, I'm struggling. I did what I could, and really that's the important thing. I didn't let the day off become the new habit. Writing every day is still what I'm doing most of the time. All right, so I'm gonna get to work. It is month end, which means I've probably chosen a really bad time to start this challenge and also start live streaming. I'm supposed to live stream tonight. We'll see how it goes, because the Swiss cheese brain is usually a feature of my post month end Fridays, but we'll see. I'll talk to you guys later. Hey y'all, it is now Saturday afternoon, and I have had a little bit of struggle over the last couple of days with writing. Yesterday, Friday, I did come home feeling less mentally able as I would like. It was month end, and I did end up needing quite a bit of mental energy for my day job. And so when I came home, I wasn't feeling super, I just didn't have a lot of reserves left. But then I also had the live stream that I had scheduled, and so that was also part of it. Like, I was super nervous about it, and I spent like 2.5 hours between the time I got home and the time that the stream started, just getting ready for it mentally, like making sure I understood how StreamYard worked and how I could appropriately share the Flocus app and everything. And then I got up and started the stream, and I was like feeling so kind of self-conscious that nobody had come at the beginning. And so I did all the wrong things. I panicked. I was sitting there in silence. I started a sprint super early, and then I ended it early. So not a great experience, but I think that was mostly because of me. I was really, really nervous. And then I talked to my partner about it, and he said, yeah, like part of doing live streams is just being comfortable talking into the silence and not having anything. It's fine. I'm not going to be deterred from trying again. It was just like, I think my nerves was the biggest problem there. After that, I sat in my recliner and did a little bit more writing, but really I only ended up with like 400 words or 500 words. I finished out the first portion of this scene, this second chapter, and I went to bed. And then this morning I got up and I knew exactly how I was going to start. The way that the scene ended on yesterday kind of led me into a segue to reveal a little bit about my main character's magic. Something I have been worried about with chapter 1 is that there's too much vagueness, and at the end of chapter 1 is when the like bomb drops that yes, my main character has magic. And so in chapter 2, I want to not extend the mystery any longer. I want to give the reader some answers, but I also don't want it to feel too much like just info dumping. Anyway, so I got up and I was working on that portion of the scene where she is like, this is when I found out I had magic. This is how it happened. And this is kind of how it's been over the course of the last 20 years. And I worked on it all morning from about 9:30 to about 12:30. And I got just over 1,000 words. And then I got up to take a break for lunch and to take a nap. And as I was doing that, I knew in my heart of hearts that everything I had written was bad and needed to go and be rewritten. It was just not good. It was just like a play-by-play of every single thing that she was going through and feeling and experiencing in the moment that she realized she had magic when she was 5 years old, and it went step by step through the scene, including talking about what she was doing and what she was even wearing and everything. And I have found that I tend to do that when I don't know what else to write. I found that out in the last draft when I was working on the fight scene. Is instead of just getting right into the action, I was going step by step through, okay, they arrive at the site of where they have found their target. Okay, they talk to the captain of the team and find out
what the plan is. Then they walk away and go to this other meeting site. And then they, and it was just like, it took up like 2,500 words. And she's like, I don't need all that. I do not need all that. I can be more concise than that. So I ate lunch and I kind of took some notes on my phone about how I want to condense everything that I just wrote this morning into, I would like to get this portion where it's discussing her history with magic into 500 words. And then we're going to go back to the main meat of the scene where she is meeting this secret government agency. That's what I'm about to do. I just got up from a nap. I've got a headache now, so I'm going to take some medicine. I'm going to drink a soda. I'm going to turn on the baseball game, but that is my plan. The only problem with scrapping the last 1,000 words is that because I've been a little bit behind this week, is I have to write 3,000 words today and 3,000 words tomorrow and do a project. So I've got some wood to chop for sure. I'm feeling better about the ideas I came up with and how I'm going to condense this next part. And I'm hoping that after I get this chunk done and I move it back into like the present moment of the scene, it'll go faster. This is just all new words that I'm writing right now. All new words, all new ideas. I didn't really go into this in the first draft at all. Yeah, right. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to get set up in my recliner. Like I said, I'm going to turn the baseball game on and we'll go from there, and I'll check in with you guys later. Well, good morning. It is now Sunday morning. And yesterday was a little bit of a roller coaster, writing-wise. Like I said in the last clip, I was really struggling with what I had written in the morning, and I knew it needed to be rewritten. And so I sat down at about 3:45 after I was done talking to you and set about fixing the problem. I was kind of at it off and on for the rest of the day, but I was still kind of having trouble with it. I finished that one scene, I moved on to the next, and I wasn't really in love with the way I constructed it and the way I was pulling over certain passages from the previous draft. I was just unhappy and struggling, and there were moments that I was like, how do I get into this next part to give her the information, the main character, the information that she needs without it being too obvious that I'm just lore dropping and trying to make it smooth. It was a struggle. And it got to be about 10 o'clock and I was really starting to get worried because I had only gotten about 2,000 words and I needed to hit at least 3,000 to make it so that today I only also had to do 3,000. And I really didn't want to leave myself more work to do today because I've got homework to do, among other things. So I was worried, really, really worried. And I was really struggling, as I said, to think of how to move into the next phase of the conversation, and I was struggling and I was worried and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fail the challenge in the first week. I'm not gonna succeed in getting my 10,000 words and it's only the first week. So what I did was I turned off the TV because I had been sort of watching TV, not really anything interesting, just a comfort show that I don't really need to pay attention to just for background noise. And I turned that off and I turned on some ambient music and I kind of closed my computer and I just laid back in the recliner and I almost fell asleep. But as we know, that actually is the most helpful way to get me to have ideas. And within about 10 minutes, I figured it out, sort of. I'm not super in love with it. I think there's probably a better way. And I would really like to go and review this scene in a few days when I've had some distance from it and clean it up a little bit. But anyway, point is, I figured it out and I moved on. In the last hour and 15 minutes of the day at from 10:30 to about 11:45, I got more than 1,000 words. I ended up with 3,787, which is great because that means I only need, I can't do math, I just woke up, 2,300 words for the day. So I saved myself a little bit of effort for today. But the funny thing is also, if you look at all the words that I deleted or changed, not really, just the words that the versions of the scenes that I had written and then cut and rewrote, I wrote closer to 5,000 words on the day. So it was a big day. It was just, a lot of it was done in that last hour and a half or so. I'm fairly happy with where it's at now. Like I said, I do think I need to go through later and clean it up a little bit and make it a little bit more smooth, but I think it's okay. But I left off on a part that needed to be thought about. So that's why I probably could have gone even later, but I really didn't want to go past midnight. It just messes with Dabble's word count tracker. Dabble resets every night at midnight and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's one of my gripes with Dabble. Is I like a lot of it, but
is not my favorite. And then I needed to sleep on this. And I think I've got a pretty good idea of how I want to handle this next moment. And so I think I'm ready to finish this scene. So that'll be the goal for today, obviously to get the 2,000 plus words, but also get through the rest of the scene and the next one. And that will put me at the 10,000 for the week. For now though, I'm gonna eat some breakfast, I'm gonna paint my nails, and I am going to sit down and do my homework because I did kind of start it yesterday. Like I did the introduction. I anticipated it taking me probably about 2 hours. So I'm gonna do that. And then hopefully by the time the baseball game starts, I will be ready to write. The thing I'm finding the most interesting is how much I am taking from the first draft. I honestly thought that I would be mostly drafting new words and only taking maybe 5 to 10%. But I have actually been keeping up with the big passages that I'm copying over. I have a separate document just so I can kind of track the words that I'm saving. And of the 7,700 words I have right now, about 2,400 of those are copied. So I am at about a third of the words that are I'm bringing over from the new draft. Now that won't hold for the whole draft because so much is changing in this first part of Act 2. So much, like new scenes completely. So there's not going to be anything to copy over. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. That I was like, yeah, I'm going to just completely redraft it, and that's not turning out to be the case. I guess I like my writing more than I thought I did, and that this first draft had some good stuff in it. Now I'm rearranging a lot of it. Like a lot of the stuff is being like moved to new parts. Something else I did was I got an idea for how to give the character information, but it wasn't appropriate in this moment. It needed to be in a much later scene. And so I just went into that scene in Dabble, and I just kind of wrote the cliff notes of the scene basically. And when I get there, I'll be able to flesh it out more and, roll it into the actual narrative. But like that's part of the reason why I love a program like Dabble or Scrivener. Scrivener, you can do that too, where you can break it out into these specific scenes and chapters. So that was interesting. Because I was like, I do not want to forget this. Where can I put it where I won't forget it? And I was like, I'll just put it literally in like the scene document. And if I have to delete it later or whatever, then I do. But for right now, it is counting towards my words written. So I did write them. And when I get there, I'll just probably add to them instead of deleting them. And even if I delete them, it's not that big a deal. I truly am just chatting with you now. That's all for now. I am going to do my homework. I'm going to paint my nails. I'm going to do my laundry, go to watch some baseball, and I eventually am going to write. But I feel really confident that I'm going to get there, especially like the end of the scene that I'm currently in. I can see that going really well. The next scene is one that I am reducing. I think I mentioned this yesterday, but like I have found that my inclination when I am not sure of what to do is to, oh, Jesus. Well, that's a big old problem. I have found that my inclination when I am stuck is to stall by just writing filler. So the scene that is being reduced is she is going to the courthouse and getting her bail set, and then she's going back and finally getting her phone call. And none of that scene at the courthouse matters. It's just I need to say it so that you guys know it. Like, she got up the next morning, she went to the courthouse, she got her bail, she went back to the jail, she got her phone call. But like when I wrote the scene, it became, that scene ended up being over 2,000 words. And it just doesn't need to be that long. All I need to say is she got up, she went to the courthouse, and she got her bail set, and then she went home, and she went back to the jail, and she made her phone call. And the phone call is the actual meat of the scene. That's what matters, is she's telling her grandmother that she got arrested and she needs to be bailed out and all this stuff. So like, that's what matters. But anyways, so I am reducing it down. I am cutting most of like the actual like, oh my gosh, what is this? This has been nothing but a disaster from start to finish. I'm gonna go because like this nail painting has become a disaster and I'm going to need to fix it. And I guess I am just too distracted by you guys. So I'm gonna go and I will just check in with you and let you know how it's going. I anticipate a good day. I just need to make sure I actually do my homework. So I will chat with you guys later. It's almost 6 o'clock and I only just turned in that project. Is anyone actually surprised? 6 o'clock on a Sunday and I've got 2,200 words to go. Help.
And just like that, the first week of this 12-week insane writing challenge has come to a close, and successfully, I might add. Yes, it did take me the better part of the evening. I think I have a new spreadsheet where it catalogs when I am starting a writing session and when I finish, so it's not just a word count tracker, it's also how much time I'm spending. Don't judge when you hear this, but I did start tonight at just about 5:45 and finished at about 11:15. Now, granted, I did get up, I did make dinner. You know, there were other things mixed in there. I wasn't writing straight through the whole time, but I did sit down and finally get through my words for the day. I actually went well over the 10,000 words because I wanted to close out this scene that I was working on. I was really nervous going into this scene because it is a scene between my main character Arceli and her grandmother who raised her, and they have a very contentious relationship. And ever since like zero draft of this project from like 2 years ago, maybe even 3, I've had a really hard time depicting their relationship on the page. I am fortunate enough to not have had this kind of relationship with a family member, especially not one of my parents who raised me. And so I'm just having trouble like making it feel real and authentic, and just like it's making me uncomfortable to write because I've never had to experience this with a loved one before, where we are just so much at odds and we're fighting about everything. And so throughout the life of this project, I have struggled with these scenes, and in the earlier drafts, I outright skipped them. When it came to them, I found an excuse to like fade to black or cut away or get out of it instead of actually addressing it head on, which I have always known that I wanted to do. I just never felt comfortable with it. And even in the first scene of this draft, Arceli is thinking about what is my grandmother going to say when she finds out I'm being arrested, and she kind of imagines what Yaya will say. And even in that like one paragraph where I'm trying to depict like her grandmother's like voice and her feelings on the matter, I didn't even feel comfortable doing that much. So I was really nervous about this scene, really stressed, and that's part of the reason it took me so long to get through. I did copy some stuff over from the previous draft. I was never really happy with this iteration of it, but I spent a lot of time reworking it and adding some things and changing some things and taking other things out. And I've gotten it to a place where I think I like it. I'm not going to say that too loud in case, you know, lightning strikes me, but I do. I think it's in a good spot now. I think I've shown much better in this iteration how contentious the relationship really is and how kind of toxic it has become now that Arceli is an adult, and how living in that environment, growing up in that environment, might have shaped her into the adult that she is. You can kind of understand better why she makes the choices that she does. So I feel better about it. I don't think that it's perfect. I definitely think that this is something I'm going to revisit repeatedly in future revisions. I do think this is an improvement over the previous iterations, by and large. So I'm happy with it. So all that to say, I wanted to get through all the way through that scene. I didn't want to stop in the middle because I didn't want to lose any of like the feeling or the momentum that I had when I was in the middle of it, because I didn't want to lose the positivity I was feeling about it. So I got all the way through it. My total, come on, behave. My current word count is 10,582 words. So I'm over the 10,000 and I've gotten an extra 500 words. That's something I can really be proud of. And I am. I set out to write 10,000 words in a week and I did it. And now I just have to do it 11 more times. So that wraps up this first week of this insane challenge. I hope that this kind of success can continue and that I don't burn myself into the ground, but we can only see from here. So with that, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe or consider leaving a comment down below. In my next video, I will have my June writing wrap up for you. I hope you look forward to it and I will see you then. Bye.